What if the thing you do every single morning is slowly teaching your dog that you cannot be trusted? Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but in a quiet, almost invisible way that builds over time. You wake up, walk over, and wrap your arms around your dog because you missed them. You call their name, expecting that familiar excitement, that instant response. But some days, they hesitate. Maybe they don't come right away. Maybe they look away for a second before moving closer. It's subtle, so subtle that you brush it off. But have you ever stopped to wonder what's really changing? I used to believe that as long as I fed my dog well, played with them, and showed affection whenever I wanted, that was enough. I saw so many other dog owners doing the exact same thing, hugging, calling, correcting, interacting out of love. And it all felt right. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't a lack of love. It's the small, repeated habits that feel completely normal. Habits that your dog may be experiencing very differently than you think. This isn't about abuse. It's not about neglect. It's about everyday moments that seem harmless, even positive. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous, because you never question something that looks like love. Until one day, you realize your dog isn't as connected to you as they used to be, and you have no idea why. Most of the things that slowly damage the bond between you and your dog don't look like mistakes at all. In fact, they often look like love. They look like cuddling on the couch, correcting your dog when they do something wrong, or taking them out for a quick walk after a long day. From your perspective, you're caring, guiding, and doing your best. But from your dog's perspective, some of these moments can feel confusing, overwhelming, or even stressful. And that's where the real problem begins. What makes these habits so dangerous is not their intensity, but their subtlety. They don't create immediate, obvious consequences. Your dog doesn't suddenly stop trusting you overnight. Instead, these small experiences accumulate day after day, shaping how your dog feels around you. A little confusion here, a little stress there, and over time it becomes a pattern your dog can't escape. Because everything seems normal, most owners never stop to question it. They assume that if their dog isn't aggressive or disobedient, then everything must be fine. But the truth is simple and uncomfortable. You can't fix something you don't realize is broken. And until you see these habits for what they really are, nothing will change. One of the most common habits that quietly damages your dog's trust is forcing physical affection, especially hugging, when your dog isn't asking for it. It usually happens in the most innocent moments. You come home after a long day, see your dog resting peacefully, and immediately reach down to hug them, kiss them, or pull them close. To you, it feels like love. But to your dog, it can feel very different. Dogs are not wired to interpret hugs the way humans do. In the canine world, placing a limb or body weight over another can signal pressure or control, not affection. So while you believe you're expressing warmth, your dog may actually be experiencing discomfort. And the tricky part is that most dogs don't react in obvious ways. They don't growl or pull away dramatically. Instead, they show subtle signs, stiffening their body, licking their lips, turning their head away, or briefly freezing. And because they tolerate it, you assume they're okay. I used to think the same way. I believed hugging my dog was a clear expression of love. But over time, I started noticing those small signals I had been ignoring. That's when I realized I wasn't always listening. I was imposing. The real danger is what happens when these moments repeat. Each time your dog communicates discomfort and it's ignored, they learn that their signals don't matter. Eventually, they may stop communicating altogether, and that's when misunderstandings can escalate into bigger problems. The solution is simple, but it requires awareness. And instead of initiating affection on your terms, learn to recognize when your dog is asking for it. When they come close, lean into you, nudge your hand, or rest their body against you. That's an invitation. Follow one simple rule. When your dog asks, you give. That shift, from taking affection to receiving it, can completely transform how your dog feels about being close to you. Another habit that quietly erodes trust is using punishment during training, even in ways that seem mild or harmless. Saying no in a sharp tone, pushing your dog's nose toward a mess, or reacting with frustration when they make a mistake can feel like clear communication. It feels like you're teaching them what not to do. But the reality is more complicated. Dogs don't process cause and effect the same way humans do. They learn primarily through association, and which means they connect how they feel in a moment with whatever is most present at that time. And very often, that's you. Instead of linking the unpleasant experience to their behavior, your dog may associate that discomfort with your presence, your voice, or the situation itself. Over time, this can create anxiety and uncertainty. I used to think a firm no was necessary to correct behavior. It seemed logical. But I started noticing that instead of learning faster, my dog became more hesitant, more cautious, almost like they were afraid of making mistakes around me. That's when it became clear. I wasn't building understanding, I was building pressure. The most damaging part isn't a single moment of punishment, it's the repetition. Small corrections, daily frustration, and subtle tension add up. A dog that is constantly worried about doing the wrong thing stops experimenting, stops engaging freely, and starts operating from fear rather than confidence. A better approach is to shift your focus entirely. Instead of punishing what's wrong, teach what's right. Use rewards to reinforce behaviors you want to see and redirect your dog when they make a mistake. If they choose something they shouldn't, offer an appropriate toy instead. If they jump, guide them into a calmer behavior and reward that. The principle is simple. Teach the correct behavior instead of punishing the wrong one. When your dog feels safe to learn, everything changes. They become more confident, more responsive, and more connected to you. A third habit that often gets overlooked is not giving your dog enough proper exercise, and then labeling the consequences as bad behavior. Many people genuinely believe that a quick 10-minute walk around the block is enough. I used to think that too. It felt responsible, like I had checked the box for the day. But the truth is, for most dogs, that's barely a warm-up. Dogs are built to move, to explore, to release energy both physically and mentally. When those needs aren't met, that unused energy doesn't just disappear, it builds up. And when it builds up, it has to go somewhere. That's when you start seeing behaviors like chewing furniture, excessive barking, restlessness, jumping, or pulling on the leash. These aren't signs of a difficult dog. They are signs of a dog that is simply trying to cope with an environment that isn't meeting its natural needs. What looks like disobedience is often just frustration and pent-up energy. The amount of exercise a dog needs depends on their breed, age, and personality, but a general range for many dogs is between 45 to 120 minutes of meaningful activity each day. And not all activity is equal. Slow, distracted walks where you're scrolling on your phone don't provide the same benefit as intentional movement. Your dog needs engagement, running, playing, exploring, and interacting with you. A balanced routine could include a brisk walk, some off-leash running if possible, and short training games that challenge their mind. Games like fetch, hide and seek, or basic obedience exercises can be incredibly effective. And these activities don't just tire your dog out, they strengthen your relationship. Because when your dog associates you with movement, stimulation, and fun, you naturally become the center of their world. And a fulfilled dog is not only calmer, but also far more connected to you. Another habit that creates confusion and slowly weakens your dog's sense of security is inconsistency in rules and boundaries. From a human perspective, flexibility feels normal. You might allow your dog on the couch when you're relaxed, but push them away when you're tired or dressed for work. You might laugh when they jump on you one day, then scold them for the exact same behavior the next. It doesn't seem like a big deal. But to your dog, it creates a world that makes no sense. Dogs don't understand context the way we do. They don't know that today is different because you're in a good mood or wearing clean clothes. All they experience is that the same action leads to different outcomes at different times. I've seen this happen so often, even in my own habits. Letting a dog climb onto the couch sometimes, then correcting them other times, feels harmless. But over time, I realized it wasn't harmless at all. It was confusing. And confusion, especially in a social animal that depends on patterns to feel safe, leads to stress. When rules are unpredictable, your dog is constantly trying to guess what's right and what's wrong. That low-level uncertainty doesn't stay isolated to one behavior. It spreads. It affects how your dog responds to new situations, how confident they feel, and how much they trust your guidance. And a dog that doesn't understand the rules can't truly relax. The solution isn't to be strict, it's to be clear and consistent. There are 3 simple principles to follow. First, clarity. Decide what is allowed and what isn't. Second, repetition. Reinforce those rules the same way every time. And third, alignment. Make sure everyone in the household follows the same rules. When your dog lives in an environment where expectations are predictable, something powerful happens. They begin to relax. Not because they get everything they want, but because the world finally makes sense. Another subtle but powerful mistake many owners make is confusing excitement with happiness. We've been conditioned to believe that the more excited a dog is, the happier they must be. The jumping, spinning, barking, and uncontrollable energy when you walk through the door. It feels amazing. It feels like pure love directed entirely at you. And honestly, I used to love that feeling too. Who wouldn't? There's something incredibly rewarding about being greeted with that level of enthusiasm. But over time, I began to question whether that state was actually good for my dog. The truth is, high excitement often means high arousal, and high arousal is closely linked to stress. When your dog reaches that intense, almost frantic level of energy, their body is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Their thinking brain essentially goes offline, and they're no longer making calm, intentional decisions. They're reacting. And when this becomes a daily pattern, your dog's nervous system starts to live in that elevated state more often than it should. And dogs that are constantly in this heightened state tend to struggle with impulse control, focus, and emotional regulation. They're more likely to overreact to small triggers, have difficulty settling down, and appear hyper or out of control. What many people interpret as a personality trait is often just a nervous system that hasn't been taught how to return to calm. A simple but powerful shift can make a huge difference. When you come home, resist the urge to match your dog's excitement. Don't immediately engage, talk loudly, or encourage the frenzy. Instead, move calmly, keep your energy low, and wait. Let your dog settle before giving attention. And when they do calm down, even slightly, reward that state with quiet affection or praise. The goal is to teach your dog that calm behavior is what gets your attention. Over time, this changes their baseline, and a calm, regulated dog is not just easier to live with, it's a truly happy one. The final habit, and arguably the most important one, is not understanding the language your dog is speaking every single day. This is the foundation beneath everything else. Because if you don't understand your dog's signals, you can't respond appropriately, no matter how much you care. Dogs are constantly communicating through body language, using a system of subtle cues often referred to as calming signals. These include things like licking their lips, yawning, looking away, turning their head, or shifting their body slightly. To most people, these behaviors seem random or meaningless. But they are not random at all. They are clear attempts to reduce tension, express discomfort, or avoid conflict. And the problem is that most of us only recognize 1 or 2 obvious signs, if any. I used to overlook these signals completely. A yawn looked like tiredness. Looking away seemed like distraction. Lip licking didn't register at all. But once I started paying attention, I realized my dog had been talking to me all along. I just wasn't listening. And when these signals are consistently ignored, something important happens. Your dog learns that communication doesn't work. Over time, they may stop giving warnings altogether, not because they feel safe, but because they've learned it doesn't make a difference. That's when misunderstandings become more serious. A dog that doesn't signal is often labeled as unpredictable, but in reality, the signals were always there. They were just missed. The solution begins with observation. I start by watching your dog more closely, in a specific order. First the ears, then the eyes, then the body. Small shifts often appear there before anything else. Learn to recognize calming signals and what they mean in different contexts. You don't need to become an expert overnight, but even a basic awareness can change everything. Because the moment your dog realizes you're finally listening, the entire relationship begins to rebuild on trust. When you step back and look at it all, none of these 6 habits seem extreme on their own. Forcing affection, using small punishments, not providing enough exercise, being inconsistent with rules, mistaking excitement for happiness, and missing your dog's signals. These are things many loving owners do every single day, and that's exactly the point. The damage doesn't come from one big mistake. It comes from repetition, from small moments that slowly shape how your dog feels around you. Your dog doesn't lose trust in you overnight. They don't suddenly disconnect for no reason. It happens quietly, gradually, one ignored signal, one confusing interaction at a time. Dogs don't walk away all at once. They drift away little by little. But the most important thing to understand is this: it's not too late to change. Awareness is the turning point. Starting today, pay closer attention. Watch how your dog responds, notice the small signals, and choose just one habit to improve. You don't need to fix everything at once. Even a small shift in how you interact can begin to rebuild trust. And sometimes, all your dog has been waiting for is for you to finally notice.